The caretaker committee of the All Progressive Congress last night reached out to two leaders of the party in the Southwest, Senator Bola Tinubu and Chief Akande, as part of efforts to resolve crisis in the party. The committee was chaired by Yobe State Governor Mayamela Boni. Met first with Akande at his country home in Osun State before traveling down to Lagos to meet with the national leader of the party, Senator Tinubu. In the meantime, APC has just constituted a 49-member committee headed by Kano State Governor Abdullahi Ganduje to lead campaign of its candidate in the September 19 Edo State governorship election. Osage Eze Iyamo, the meeting, which held behind closed doors, was attended by the Secretary of the Committee, Senator Akpan Udoechi, Osun State Senator Gboyega Yutola, and his Niger State counterpart, Abubakar Bello, among others.
We have lost one of our brothers, Isaka Ajimabi. We discussed him and sent a very sincere condolence to the family. And look at our party, APC, which is the cure for aches and pain. So we apply the ingredients of APC to what appear to be pains and our party. So we heal. And we'll discuss the future from here. Sincerely, we have trust and respect for the character of the chairman of the caretaker committee. So, and
Senator Tinubu there, Senator Bola Tinubu there was saying the APC has cure for aches and pains, but all I see are festering wounds everywhere in the APC. It's like a plague sore. Tundun, that's all I see.
You continue to insist on your little fires everywhere theory.
That's all I see.
Well, and it appears that every effort is being made to extinguish those fires and apply whatever healing salve this is to cure the aches and pains. That analogy he gave is actually very interesting because we all know that the party had been suffering from all kinds of wounds and fractures and what. The caretaker committee is working very hard trying to breach those, and they're on this tour of the Southwest. Let's see where the caretaker committee heads off to next.
Anyway, let me start on a lighter note before I move on to the substantial issues, which is to say Senator Bola Tinubu or Asiwaju Bola Tinubu saying that they are applying the APC solution, which was a drug that was invented in 1919 by a guy called Vincent. But, you know, by almost the end of the century, APC had been banned because it was found to be a drug, you know, that has carcinogenic and kidney-related complications. So just for purpose of clarity on a lighter note. But this is the first assignment, a major public assignment that the caretaker committee and the extraordinary convention committee of the APC will embark upon. And I think it's just as well that their first assignment, public assignment, is to visit Chief Akande, who was the head of the reconciliatory committee that was set up to resolve crisis within the party and which could not achieve much up to this point. Also, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, there have been a lot of permutations, speculations about whether or not what happened with the dissolution of the National Working Committee was meant to erode the influence of Asiwaju Bola Tinubu within the party. So, with the caretaker committee visiting him at his Ikoyi home, that sends a strong signal that, you know, it's still one family. And I think that is a very good, very smart move. We do not know the details of the meeting, but Asiwaju Bola Tinubu was asked whether this was a meeting about, you know, mending fences and resolving. So he pointed it out very clearly that, look, they don't have any differences within the party. But the substance of their meeting was to see how to further reposition the APC as a progressive party. And this coming at a time when a 49-member committee has also been set up on the September 19 election in Edo State, led by the governor of Kano State, Alhaji Ganduje, you see that there is indeed an attempt within the party to mend fences, even if they would not admit it, to resolve issues, and asking Chief Bisi Akande to give them ideas about reconciliation. I think also that shows that there is an attempt to build bridges, to mend fences. How that plays out, however, remains to be seen, because there are still aggrieved members of the party who are saying, look, the constitution of the party needs to be reconsidered. Certain other steps need to be taken. But for now, it's good to see that the APC is not staging drama on the pages of newspapers.
Interesting prospect there. Let's see if we can take this story real quick. The Nigerian Labour Congress has rejected the new fuel price of 143.8 naira per litre announced by the Petroleum Products Price Regulatory Agency. This is an increase from the previous 125 naira per litre. The NLC says this is the last straw that will break the camel's back. The Congress demanded a reversal of the pump price to the old pump price, arguing that prices of crude oil in the international markets had only slightly increased before the downward review was announced 2 months ago. NLC President Ayuba Waba described the hike in fuel pump price and the proposed electricity tariff hike as potent threats to run millions of Nigerians under. He asked the federal government to rehabilitate the refineries and set up a timeline for achieving this objective. I mean, there's a lot of pushback. Not only the NSA, I should say, even the PDP is pushing back as regards fuel pump price. Is this justified?
Absolutely. I really do think so. Because it was during the lockdown that the price went down. Nobody really got a chance to enjoy it. And then did you read that article in the UK Guardian about the quality of petrol that were actually sold? It's disgusting. Yeah. That needs to be explored. That is such a bombshell. So frankly,
the government has come out to deny that and say, you know, it's
a denial is not satisfactory.
It's not the case.
No, there needs to be a proper investigation into that claim. So yes, of course I understand.
The PPPRA has made it clear that the position of government is to stop paying subsidies on fuel. And as a result of that, that prices would reflect market forces, will be market determined. And that's what has been done. Now, since March or so, oil prices have been going up and down. And this is benchmarked to the spot price of fuel. But NLC is consistent in its position that, look, you have to fix the refineries. We have 4 moribund refineries that are not working. If we were to produce here, all those details about landing cost and all of that, you know, you will not pass the cost to the average Nigerian. But hopefully we'll get there someday.
No time, but when you look at the Kaduna refinery reports, you are shocked even about the viability of those refineries when you finally
no revenue from
no revenue.
No losses. Well, thank you, gentlemen. That's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have the trio of Rotus Odiri, Michael Wilson, and Aaron Akerejala to give us updates on Africa and global business and COVID-19. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our ever-dependable Rotus Odiri is here now to give us Africa Business Update. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Tundun. Good morning, Rufai. So you folks, you three were already talking about it before you went on break, starting, of course, with the PDP and the NLC, People's Democratic Party, Nigerian Labour Congress, both speaking out against the price hike in the cost of fuel, PMS. Let's see, what are the quotes we have here? Mr. Ayuba Waba, who is the president of the NLC, said that this is a potential threat to run millions of Nigerians under. NLC, I think Rufai already quoted the NLC saying that this is his final. There he is, that's the president of the NLC. Rufai already said this is a straw that final straw that breaks the camel's back. People's Democratic Party National Public Secretary Kola Ologundiya said that this is it shows the federal government has showing a lack of empathy and human feelings. And yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, that, you know, if you are going to deregulate the downstream sector, and as the PPPRA has said, you will have to move in line with market realities. It wasn't just Nigeria who revised upward the price of fuel. South Africa did it, as I said yesterday, and also I believe Kenya did it as well. So it's not just us. You are moving in line with crude oil prices. I do want to correct something I said yesterday. I said oil marketers, even though the NNPC is the sole importer of refined fuel, refined crude. I said the oil marketers have to source for foreign exchange because of the foreign exchange component with the pricing, which has to be addressed if we unify exchange rates. They have to source for it from the parallel market. That's not true. I apologize for that error. They actually are able to source for FX from the I&E window. But the comments on the PDP and the NLC, they have to understand the economics of how all this works, and they have to understand that, the federal government of Nigeria cannot continue to subsidize fuel. Mele Kyari, Group Managing Director of the NNPC, has said, look, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. The head of PPRA has said this is how this is going to work going forward. So you just have to bite the bullet after years of not making the proper decision. This is where things have to go. It's market realities, fundamentals. Moving on to...
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, next up, the SD, there was a report, in fact, Tundun already mentioned this as well. The reports of the fuel that is imported from Europe into Nigeria being dirtier, more environmentally damaging than illegally bunkered fuel in the Niger Delta. It's from a non-profit organization called the Stakeholder Democracy Network, the SDN. They're located in the Niger Delta, very environmentally conscious group. And they did a study which suggests that the imported fuel coming from Europe into Nigeria is actually more environmentally damaging than what is illegally brought out of the ground from the Niger Delta, which, of course, you now have to talk about climate change, you have to talk about our health, you have to talk about, the environment. So, what they're doing is trying to bring attention to this. Federal government should actually, and also our environmental agencies and ministries as well, should look into that and also, look at the study, try and follow up on it with regards to what it is that we're bringing in. It does, of course, bolster the point that we must have our own refineries working so that, of course, the Dangote refinery is coming on stream soon, so that we don't have to bring in refined fuel from Europe or elsewhere, and we can just refine our own fuel here, and hopefully it's a lot cleaner. And then to the prior points of the PDP and NLC, of course, if you refine your fuel, it's probably going to be cheaper for us as well. Next story is from South Africa. MultiChoice is saying that they are musing that they might actually have to give up, MultiChoice Africa, they might have to give up broadcasting rights to the English Premier League in Nigeria. They're saying that as far as broadcasting is concerned, the cost of acquiring those rights keeps rising. I think they said they spent about $250 million on EPL rights, another 100 million or so euros on the UEFA Champions League. So the costs are rising. They face pressure here in Nigeria with regards to raising their prices. But Jason Njoku, who is the head of Iroko TV, put out a tweet looking at their numbers. I haven't gone through the numbers myself, not yet, but their numbers show that Nigerians actually pay, with regards to the brocades, we pay less than compared to folks in Ghana, South Africa. Yeah, there's the tweets with the breaking down some of the numbers. You can check out the thread. But, will MultiChoice pull out? I mean, it's a large number of sports watchers here in Nigeria, but of course it's a cost-benefit analysis. You have to look at the cost of what is, what they are paying to acquire those rights. They are facing more competition from the Amazons, the Facebooks, and other, technology companies that are into digital broadcasting who also want those rights. So the more people bid for those rights, the more the price goes up. So, we'll see what happens. But, if I'm going to hedge my bets, I don't think they'll pull out because of the revenue they can get from here. Finally, South Africa posted their first current account surplus in 17 years. Q1 2020 surplus of 1.3% of GDP, which amounted to 69.7 billion rand. That's about $4.2 billion. Is against Q4 2019, where there was a deficit of 1.3%. This is the last current account surplus was in 2003, and Q1 2020 trade balance was a surplus of $208 billion. Now, at the bottom there, the lockdown occurred at the tail end of March, and the first quarter is looking at January through March. Very quickly, the balance of payments with regards to what we're seeing here, when we look at that trade balance, your trade balance is as a result of your exports versus your imports. If you export more than you import, then you have a trade surplus. If you import more than you export, you have a trade deficit. And the balance of trade is a component of your current account, which is what CA stands for. Your current account is like literally your current account, where it handles transactions, investments in cross-border payments, and that is also a component of your balance of payments. Just a little economic jargon. But balance of payments is made up of your current account, your capital account, and your financial accounts. Current account is what I just explained. The capital account tracks investments going in and out of the country, capital going in and out of the country that is chasing after investments, and then your financial account just looks at the ownership of international assets. So all three of those make up your balance of payments, and countries use this for economic policy. What are we exporting? What are we importing? What's making us the most money? What's not? It's supposed to guide your policy. So good for South Africa, but that again was before the lockdown happened. So Q2, they might swing back into a current account deficit.
Well, on the question of the report by the SDN, if indeed artisanal refineries and illegal refineries in the Niger Delta are producing better fuel than what we import from Europe, is there a way the relevant agencies can engage those artisanal refineries to see how they can also be put into the framework of production, considering the fact that our refineries are not efficient? Secondly, the point made by the NLC is an ideological point. The NLC is always opposed to neoliberalism. But what is the alternative idea that they are putting on the table? It's not enough to just say, we don't want government to obey market realities. What is the alternative that they are offering beyond saying the refineries should become efficient, which is something that we all agree with?
Yeah, so with regards to whether or not to engage the folks involved in illegal bunkering, well, what they're doing is illegal. They're breaking the law. So, you would probably have to, that just essentially tells us that we have to, make sure that our refineries are working. So you got to round them up and arrest them because they're stealing. They're stealing from, this is money that is supposed to be exported for revenue for Nigeria. So you want to, round them up, arrest them, and then address the fact that you need refineries to pump cleaner fuel, to refine cleaner fuel than what you're getting from Europe. And then your excellent point, Doctor, the NLC, they don't have an alternative. So, they don't really have much of a point.
I completely disagree with you, Rotus. But thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to move on to a global business update from Michael Wilson, joining us from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Morning. Asian shares up to a 4-month high on the back of some good results out of China, good brisk pickup in the Chinese service sector activity and so on. A pretty low-key ending to the week, though. Basically, it's been quite exciting with those jobs figures yesterday, which I'll come on to. But basically, the US is on holiday today, a day ahead of the Independence Day celebrations tomorrow, July the 4th. But there are some interesting stories still coming out of the United States, one of which is I'm hearing that a lot of asset managers on Wall Street are just wondering what would happen if Joe Biden actually got to the White House and what the difference between the Trump bump and the new status quo might actually be. Higher taxes, probably, $15 minimum wage. That would crimp retailers' profits. Certainly clean energy stocks would be something to look at if you're an investor, and or anything to do with healthcare, probably quite good. So let's have a look at those US jobs figures. Smashing all the expectations. Again, of 4.8 million. The expectation had been 3 million new jobs or return to job, an unemployment rate that fell back to 11.1% from 13.3%. All sounds extremely good, and even better, a fall in the underemployment rate from 21 to 18. Furloughed workers obviously getting back to their jobs. I was suggested yesterday that maybe there was a suspicion that companies had laid too many people off and were rapidly rehiring them, as a turnaround is clearly in view. We'll again come on to that. But still, a lot of caution about this. Weekly jobless claims, a rise of 1.4 million, and that means continuing claims rising to, I'm making about 19.2 million from the week before. And given that there's been more COVID-19 cases, that caution is actually pretty well versed in what we imagine to be the effect of this. It is very difficult, and of course those payroll figures only actually apply to this up to the second week in June, so they do not take into account those further infections in the US Sun Belt in California, Arizona, Texas, and Florida. And so therefore, the delays to those people actually coming back off furlough may make a difference the next time around. We still have 14 million Americans out of work, according to the Bureau for Labor Statistics, than the 14 million more, than actually was the case in February. Now, back in Europe, we had some flash PMIs. Sorry to get technical about that, but they're preliminary looks at the way purchasing managers actually think about where they feel as though the companies, the countries, various European countries are actually going. There will be some more announced today after I've left you, but there should be a steady sort of recovery. The biggest fear, basically, is around tourism at this time of year. Spain, Italy, both of those countries, we would regard them as developed countries, and they do still rely a huge amount for their GDPs, 10% in the case of Spain, for example, on people actually going and visiting them. And that really is something that needs to be accelerated this time of the year. As far as the UK is concerned, forget about big tax cuts. That's the message from the Finance Minister, the Chancellor. But there will be, this is going to be a big speech next week, more about job retention. So instead of the state, as it were, putting its arm round workers, as it's done with the furlough scheme, it'll be discussing ways and getting people actually back to work, job retention being the key. However, British factories are continuing to lay off workers. 46% of manufacturers say that they're going to lay off. That's sharply up from 25% in May. So that's clearly a problem. Now, the pubs open tomorrow. Cheers and fears, though. Pubs will be allowing customers in for the first time since March the 20th. Closing the pubs has been a completely unprecedented step. They didn't close during 2 world wars. In fact, they continued to stay open. The Prime Minister has said, please behave yourselves. Many of the elephants that define a pub will be missing when they reopen. Numbers limited, no crowds on a Friday or a Saturday, no standing at the bar, no live music. And also, they'll be keeping a record of the customers. So you've got to write down when you get there, when you leave, and a contact number. I suspect that a lot of people will be writing their contact numbers in rather wobbly handwriting when they leave. I hope they do. But anyway, everything begins to be open on Saturday. So tourism then, things are being relaxed here. No quarantine after July the 10th for visitors or people returning from France, Spain, Germany and Italy. Commodities, very briefly, finally, oil prices easing very, very slightly. Again, nothing to do with OPEC. I keep saying this to you. It's all about demand, all about drawbacks on reserves and all the rest of it. And in the United States, which is the world's largest oil consumer, the recent spikes have increased fears that maybe fuel demand will fall. I don't personally think it will. I think that Americans will actually get into their cars and start driving. Why wouldn't you? In a country of effectively 52 different countries, I know there's states and so on, but they are very, very different countries, from cold in the north to warm in the south. Why wouldn't you want to chase the seasons? I hope you have a lovely weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Exciting
Which I suppose is why a lot of Americans don't own passports. They don't feel the need to. You can go skiing, you can go to the beach, all in the same country. But I want to talk to you about this whole grab a drink and raise a glass tweet from the UK Treasury, which some people found distasteful. But is it really? Aren't they just trying to encourage people to come out and so that life can go back to normal?
Yes, I mean, the message, what the Treasury would really like us to do is to spend a lot more money, spend our way back to recovery. It's the same in every economy, I would imagine. And people are quite cautious about this. I mean, yes, life is sort of getting back to normal again. Again, the view about this, I think the most sensible one is we are going to have to come to terms with the fact that there won't be a vaccine for a very, very long time. There'll be competing demands for vaccines, as you know. There are very big Pharma is very much involved in trying to get something together. We don't even have a vaccine for the common cold. How long's that been going? So I think what we're going to have to do is to approach life with responsibility. And we're going to, and this weekend will be a prime example of that, when the pubs and restaurants reopen and so on. If there is a second spike anywhere, then you can expect pressure on sterling, and we'll all have to go back and all have to hunker down again. But I think the time of national lockdowns is over. We have to be brave about these kind of things. We have to be brave and sensible. That seems to be the message.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael Wilson.
So now for COVID-19 pandemic update, we're joined by Aaron Akerejala. Good morning, Aaron.
Yeah, good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Dr. Abati. Good morning, Rufai, Tundun. Looking fierce and red today. Looking lovely, I must say.
You used the word fierce yesterday.
Yes.
So you're using it twice in a week.
All right, you're allowed to.
Isn't that repetition?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Come up with new lines.
All right, I'll do that.
Be innovative.
I'll do my best. And let's get straight into it. As it stands right now, looking at how things have actually played out in terms of COVID-19, with the US actually breaking its own one-day record for a number of cases. Before we come into that, looking at the world figures, with the US breaking its record of one-day cases 4 times in the last 7 days. Of course, today, in the last 24 hours, the US have actually had 51 new cases of COVID-19 in the country, spread around, with the likes of Texas, Arizona, and California taking much of the cake, and also seeing a spike in Brazil. As a matter of fact, in the last 24 hours, we've seen new cases toppling well over 48,000. And South Africa themselves are doing very, very badly in terms of the prevention and also containing the virus. At the moment, South Africa have well over 40% of the caseload in the entirety of Africa. As a matter of fact, as of the beginning of June, South Africa had 34,000 cases of COVID-19 in the country. And based on the tally that came in yesterday, South Africa now have well over 168,000 cases of COVID-19 in that country. And you look at that and you say to yourself, Michael Wilson was speaking about vaccines and how vaccines would actually help in stopping this virus. But at the moment, we're not sure when we'll get one. Let's try to dissect how these things will go out. They brought up a picture about the number of vaccines and those that are in phases there. At the moment, we have well over 145 vaccines in research and clinical trials and several phases. You can see different phases there. At the moment, 20 are in human phase trials, of which in those 20, 14 right now have begun testing the vaccine for safety and dosage, while 11 of those 20 have expanded to safety trials. 3 of those 20 are in large-scale efficacy tests. At the moment, we'll be giving you the figures in a moment. And also, just one has made landslide breakthrough in terms of vaccine. But at the moment, they are claiming they might have to do emergency vaccines, because usually when you look at vaccines, moving on to the next slide, you'll find out that it takes quite a lot of time to get a vaccine. You can actually see there, the varicella, that was a vaccine that took almost 28 years. All right, it's popularly known as the Chickenpox Vaccine. It took almost 28 years to be developed. Of course, also, rotavirus that actually deals with genital warts took about 15 years to develop. So you look at this and you say to yourself that, and also, and moving on to the next one now. So when we look at all this, these are the stages in vaccine development. Of course, the virus analyses, animal trials, virus analyses, they go into the the vaccine being developed, animal trials are being carried out, human trials, approval, then mass production. And as we move on to the next one, the good thing about this is the fact that while it might not take as long as possible, while a lot of people are optimistic that in the next 12 to 18 months, we might have a vaccine for COVID-19, is the fact that the SARS-CoV-2, that's the virus that actually causes the coronavirus, is similar to what we saw with SARS, which broke out from Wuhan in China back in 2002. And they share similarities in their strain, 80%. So the research that was done back in 2002, leading up until 2006, is being used to synthesize a vaccine for COVID-19. As we even speak, and there are some fears from some other researchers who claim that at the moment, as of 2020, there's still no vaccine for SARS and MERS. But they are hoping to make large strides with COVID-19. Now, looking at those pharmaceuticals and those companies who are championing this all around the world, like we said, 145 researchers and companies have devoted billions into getting vaccine, and the race is heating up very nicely. If we move on to the next slide, we'll find out that looking at the world map, we can see some that are actually pushing the boundaries, and we are hoping to get a vaccine very, very soon. And looking at it, starting off from AstraZeneca, as a matter of fact, AstraZeneca in all of this have made the most strides in trying to get a virus for the entire world. You and I know what is happening at the moment. They're in South Africa and in Brazil in phase 3 trials being conducted on humans, and they're also in phase 2 and phase 3 trials in the UK. So AstraZeneca have gone very, very far, and they're claiming by October they should have an emergency vaccine that will be given to the world. And when they begin production, they can produce as much as 2 billion of those vaccines. Now, moving on to the likes of CanSino. We spoke about CanSino Bio earlier on. CanSino Bio is actually merging and also partnering with the Military Health Institute in China. And they're already beginning to dole out vaccines for their own military, although it's still a little bit sketchy. But they are saying that for now, they have a vaccine to be given to the military in need-to basis. So still moving on, can I still get that particular figure there so that we can actually still explain some of them? And Inovio, for example, Inovio, they themselves in the US are also doing very, very well, and they are hoping that they can actually push this a little bit further and maybe hopefully get a vaccine for the US. But BioNTech alongside Pfizer, BioNTech is in Germany, alongside Pfizer are also pushing hard to get in a vaccine to be able to counter this virus. And we also have Sanofi from France, who are also in advanced stages. And they, as it stands right now, there's still controversy around what will be produced by Sanofi, because the US are the ones bankrolling Sanofi. And if they do produce a vaccine, certainly it might be shipped back to the US first before even serving France, where the company is actually domiciled. So that's how things are actually playing out in the race to getting a vaccine at the moment. But in all of this, AstraZeneca have pushed the furthest, and they are looking the likeliest to get a vaccine by October.
Well, I think the good news, however, is that effort is being made. And there is a race for a vaccine.
Yeah.
The expectation is that perhaps by fall, we'll be able to get a vaccine. You left out Pfizer, which...
No, I said that BioNTech are in partnership with Pfizer.
Pfizer, okay.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
They came up with something that you had drawn attention to previously, which they say will now be peer-reviewed. But where is Africa in all of this? Africa is not part of the picture at all.
No.
And that's something that should concern us, because if we're talking about global solidarity in finding a solution, it's a comment on our stage of development that we're not part of this scientific effort to solve a human problem, a global problem.
Sorry to cut you in, Dr. Abati. I keep asking the question about Professor Maurice Iwu. He said he had vaccine that was being tried in America. And he said he met with the authorities in the States. He had submitted what constituted the vaccine. Where is Maurice Iwu's vaccine? Now, somebody should hold Maurice Iwu to account.
Rufai,
where is his vaccine?
Rufai, the point is this. You cannot really blame Professor Maurice Iwu. The truth is this. As a matter of fact, we've spoken about 145 companies devoting billions and billions into vaccinations production. The truth is this. Only 10%, according to researchers, would actually even make it true. Now, coming back to that, when you look at Africa, the question now is this. A lot of money is being spent on R&D by these companies. Now, remember that they're not just starting afresh. those that have dealt with SARS and MERS are taking the research and data from those and putting it into COVID-19 research and are trying to accelerate it. What have we done in time past that can actually help right now and the future?
So Morrissey, who claimed that this has been the research over a period of time, they even have an association for it. They even have a ecological garden where they store all of this. So it's been over a period of time. I just want to know the situation of things with that vaccine. Aaron, we can't spend $1 billion like America and other countries spend on vaccine. We don't have that money. We don't have that money for R&D.
Then we cannot measure up. It will be difficult.
But when you look at history and historical antecedents, you will see that some countries have been able to undercut them through, their herbal medicine, just like artemisinin and China and the Chinese wormwood. They brought out their historical drug, the Chinese wormwood, and they formed artemisinin. While people were losing, the cure to malaria in the 70s and 80s. So our herbs, where is our herbs? Okay. I just want that Morrison conversation to continue.
And on that note, what's the situation with the Madagascar formula?
It has actually dissipated, although not entirely, because as it stands right now, we've spoken about 145 vaccines in the works. There are also 250 therapies and remedies also in the works. And that particular Madagascar concoction falls into that particular category.
Well, the Minister for Health said that we have that same herb or leaf growing in Nigeria. But anyway, thank you so much.
And it's largely anti-malaria.